Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Article 10 TV. Tonight we've got a very special episode, seeing as it's the first proper episode of the podcast. It's taken a little while to get the rebranding done and a few other bits and pieces as well, the launch of the new store and everything else. So, I've been taking my time and trying to do it really nice and proper. I've still got to work on the introduction video. I'm just waiting for the licensing for the music that I've applied for. And then we should be good to go with that, and we'll have a lovely new intro as well. Anyway, let's get into it. So, tonight's episode is called A Fight for Freedom, The Globalist Chains Unmasked. And in tonight's episode, what I'm going to do is basically try and unravel the methods that the globalists are using to try and ensnare us in some kind of dystopian future where they have their stakeholder capitalism and the people that own the most shares for everything in the world make all the decisions. It's basically an abolishment of governance in the way that we know it, and handing all of the keys over to large corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and then obviously you have the banking cartel, the World Economic Forum, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, and so many more. So we'll jump into it anyway. So picture this: your town's overrun with chaos. You've got skyrocketing bills, unchecked crime. The borders are wide open. You don't really need to picture it much because if you live in any town in the UK, that's pretty much the case of affairs at the moment. Feels like the world's falling apart, doesn't it? But, maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's exactly what they're aiming for. So, there's a shadowy elite. I call them parasites now. I don't like addressing them as the elite, but everybody's sort of waking up at the moment, still knows them as the globalist elite. So we'll go with that for now. But a shadowy elite, globalist pulling strings and using a dirty tactic. Now, I call it a dirty tactic. It's probably widely more known as PRS. What does that stand for? Problem, reaction, solution. So the technique itself really is they create a problem for the pre-prepared solution that they've got. They wait for the reaction from the public. They pretty much wait until you're crying out for a solution and they come along and go, "Oh, we've had an idea. What do you think of this?" And at that point, you're so desperate that you'll pretty much take anything they offer. So we're going to expose that today. I'm going to literally rip the mask off the groups like the World Economic Forum and their cronies who've been caught rehearsing the crises to control us. And this isn't conspiracy nonsense, guys. This is just literally all truth, all fact. It's a wake up call. Because if you haven't cottoned on to what's going on now, then we don't have much time to be able to do something about it. And you guys watching are just as important as people like me, as prospective good world leaders, as people that might save the day, so to speak. Because everybody has a voice. The problem is not everybody's using it right now. So hopefully we can try and encourage you guys to use your voice a little bit more. So stay with us as we expose the truth and how they're using chaos to chain you and how we can fight back. Are you ready for the truth? So, hopefully you can see my screen now. I just want to show you that I'm not mugging you off with some pre-prepared artwork like people could do. There are some really manipulative people out there, and you can't believe every source you find on the internet. My best advice is always to check what you're being told. It only takes a couple of minutes. If it's something that means something to you, if it instills anger or fear, any kind of emotion at all, really, and triggers you in any way, then check it. Make sure it's real before you get emotionally attached to some news because there's a lot of bollocks out there. Anyway, as you can see, I'm in Google. I've typed in World Economic Forum, it's come up. We'll go onto the website. Now, when you go onto the website, they've got a little search bar up here, and you can pretty much search anything you want. I'm going to search Bilderberg because that will tie me into the first gentleman that we found, Victor Halberstad, World Economic Forum. Also served as the chair of the Bilderberg meetings. Now, I've got his profile open here a bit bigger. we can go into a little bit of information about this guy. So he has passed on. He passed on last year. Obviously, there's been a bit of a leadership shake-up within the World Economic Forum, but the goal still stays the same. So, the late Victor Halberstad, born 1939 till 2024, served as the chair of the Foundation Bilderberg meetings. He also held multiple positions, including Crown Member. Yes, you heard me right. He was actually very closely linked to the Queen herself. Social Economic Council, he was the chairman of that. He was on the International Advisory Board. He worked for Daimler and Chrysler. He was an advisor and Secretary General. He worked for the OECD as a member of the Government's Council on Defence. He worked for Her Majesty the Queen's Informateur. He was the president of International Institute of Public Finance. He was a member of the Investment Committee, ABP, non-executive director. You get the idea. He was involved in pretty much everything. But the most important parts here are he was the chair of the Bilderberg meetings, and he was also a member of the Crown. Now, I also checked for the Trilateral Commission, and if you have a look here, we've got yourselves Fred Bergston. Now, was this the yeah, this is the Trilateral Commission. And I don't know if you guys have heard of these groups before, but some of you will have. So I just wanted to show you how they all tie together through the World Economic Forum, because the World Economic Forum seems to be the cesspit that the demons all play in. So let's skip through this quickly. He was part of the Central Methodist College. He's got a BA honours degree. It was in Massachusetts in law and diplomacy, and a PhD at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. He was assistant for the International Economic Affairs. Again, he was heavily rooted into the world's finances. He worked on the National Security Council as a senior fellow counsel on the foreign relations, Brookings Institution, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. You'd have heard of the Carnegies before as well. He was the Assistant Secretary for the Treasury of Internal Affairs, an Undersecretary for Monetary Affairs, and a chairman for the APEC, Eminent Persons Group. He also worked on the Council of Foreign Relations. They're another one that are all intimately intertwined into each other. And of course, he was on the executive committee for the Trilateral Commission here, and the Bretton Woods Commission, which I don't know if you know about that, but Bretton Woods is basically the entire financial system and how that works. So a very influential character of the past, obviously. He has retired now. I think he's still alive. But as I say, the last position he held was the United States and the world economy, foreign economic policy for the next decade. So, again, very intertwined. We've got the Council of Foreign Relations, we've got the Trilateral Commission, we've got the Bilderberg Group, and then obviously, you know, the World Economic Forum being the World Economic Forum, being the cesspit for the demons. I just noticed that there was a story on here as well. I wasn't expecting this one, to be honest with you. I thought this one would be a little bit more secretive. But it's a story on climate action. It said it's time to emerge from our planetary emergency, and here's a plan. Now, it's a paper that was written, and who was it written by other than the Club of Rome? There you go. So, as you can see, all of these groups, they're all intertwined with each other. They're all part and parcel of the same little package. You know, Christmas Day, Klaus Schwab opens a little box up, poof, and there's his membership cards for the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg meetings, and obviously the only other person I know that's guaranteed intertwined with all of them is Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Bill Gates himself. So there's the connection. So we've established a connection between all of these groups. Anything they're involved in, we can pretty much assume that it's going to be towards the bigger scheme of things, of tying us down, putting a ball and chain around our foot, herding us into little 15-minute cities, you know, having us electronically connected to the grid, and eventually maybe even putting brain implants in people so they can read your minds. I'm not joking. It's actually a suggestion Klaus Schwab made himself before he was forced to retire as the leader of the organisation. Now, we'll get into why in a little bit, But obviously, things are happening in the background and they're not being made overtly public. They are being done quite covertly. So we'll expose them as we go forward. So let's jump into the first proper section, using crises as weapons. Now, these guys have long been at this. They've been doing it for generations. Probably, as far as I know, it could go back a couple of hundred years. Obviously, not the same living people. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Clone technology and all of that. We don't know. We don't know what's been hidden from us. But let's just assume that they've kept it in the family for generations. Now, obviously, Klaus Schwab started the World Economic Forum himself. His dad was a member of the Nazi regime. He was a close aide to Hitler and an advisor, and also a doctor himself, I believe. I do believe Klaus Schwab has got a doctorate of some sort, social sciences and economics, I think it is. But we've sniffed out the globalist trap anyway now. So, let's see them swing their wrecking ball, basically. So they've got crises cooked up to make us beg for their trashy shitty solutions that never do any of us any good, really. So, what kind of crises am I talking about? Well, I'm not talking about, well, I was going to say 9/11, but we don't know. Again, I've got a pretty good idea who was behind that. But we're talking about things that we're dealing with on an everyday basis. Now, you guys obviously very familiar with a lot of them without realizing that this is what it is. We're all being told it's natural, they're running from war, blah, blah, blah. But we know they're all single fighting age men that are coming over on these boats, sneaking over in the back of lorries, even hitching lifts in a plane, and then getting here, claiming asylum, ditching their documents, and disappearing. So they can't even have their asylum claims processed. So, migration, that's the first one. It's an absolute circus at the moment. The borders are flung open like a Black Friday sale, and lads are handed hotel suites while you're stuck queuing for a dodgy dentist appointment, and it's not a coincidence, guys. So, I mean, if you think it is, I mean, come on, please. Klaus Schwab's probably cackling in his Davos lair right now, plotting the next BritCard pitch. We'll get into that in a little while. And then there's net zero, green taxes hiking your bills so high that you're eating beans by torchlight. Now, these eco warriors, they're all jet setting and flying to conferences, hundreds of jets on an airway somewhere in Switzerland, you know, absolutely using more carbon than any of us will do in a decade just through flying around the world. So they're hypocritical for a start. They've got money, so they don't count, I guess. Um, but it's a lie. It's a lie, isn't it? The net zero agenda is just another way of taxing the life out of us. Puts us in a low mood, and obviously people that are in a low mood and depressed all the time, they're much easier to control. So there's something in that, and that was uncovered during the MK Ultra experiments, which we know were real because the CIA have released a lot of documentation pertaining to that, and what they didn't release on purpose. Um, our good friend Julian Assange made sure the world knew about it. So, housing. Let's look at the housing. I mean, good luck on forming a broom cupboard unless you're Larry Fink's accountant. This chaos, migration, sky high costs, unaffordable homes, it's all straight out of their dirty tactic playbook. Now, remember, I said I call it the dirty tactic. It's create a problem, sit back and watch the chaos unfold, and then come in with the solution. So it's problem, reaction, solution. It's a three-step plan, and they've got the patience for this shit. They could wait decades. They'd rather not because they're trying to rush it along now. I think that's probably because they feel threatened by the moves that certain people are making politically. Donald Trump definitely being one of them, which is why if you turn the telly on to get all your information about Donald Trump, you'll probably think he's an airheaded racist bigot. But he's not. Much more to it than that. So they let it fester, they watch us fume, and then they dangle solutions like digital IDs to fix the mess they've made themselves. Don't fall for it. It's their crises, and they created it, and it's just chains with extra steps. We're basically just walking into a doom, a future where They've got it all planned out for us. We'll all live on universal basic income. We'll all live within 15 minutes of everything we need. And we'll all be electronically connected to the grid by way of biometric IDs, maybe an implant, or maybe just a card to start with. And then they'll say, well, we've developed this new tech. We need to switch from the card to this now. Just like they're doing at the moment with cash, they're trying to switch to electronic. So let's go into one of the more recent crises that they've created. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist on this one. I think we all know that it was created, the problem itself, anyway. So let's get into COVID really briefly. So rewind back to the lockdowns. You remember them? Where it turned your local pub into a ghost town, made you wear a sheet over your face, stand 2 meters apart from everybody, and let Gran die on her own. It's not funny, I know. But small businesses got absolutely obliterated throughout that period. They got squashed flat, with thousands of family shops shuttered now permanently, while mega corporations like Amazon reaped the rewards and laughed all the way to the bank. So if you think that was just bad luck, no, it's not. It's the dirty tactic at work. You see, the globalist suits like these at the World Economic Forum, they also saw a chance to tighten the screws, and they took it. They absolutely took it. And boy, did the screws get tightened for a little while. And I think you'll find that Trump instilling Operation Warp Speed forced their hand. And we can thank him for that because I think they had another 5 years worth of lockdowns planned for us before they were going to give us any solution, i.e., the vaccine. So then you got the furlough scam. Now, what do you think that was? Do you think that was the government helping everybody out because they couldn't earn any money? Or do you think it was handing out cash to keep you afloat just so that you're hooked on government crumbs, particularly begging for their universal basic income plans? So these bigwigs, they didn't just stumble into this. It turned into a health scare and a power grab. And it was also the biggest transition of wealth in the history of the earth. So, at the end of the day, this is another classic case of problem, reaction, solution, the dirty tactic. And they cleared the board for their corporate buddies while small fries like your mate's bakery went under. It's as simple as that. It was never about masks, it was about control. It was about paving the way for their digital ID. Um, and don't let these tie wearing vampires fool you. Help was a one-way ticket to dependency town. They needed you dependent on them because if you don't depend on them, you're free. So if you can smash your dependency on your government, then you will escape, as they call it, the matrix. Excuse me, I've got a bit of man flu lingering around. I've had it for a little while now, and yeah, it feels like I've got a frog jumping up and down in my chest. So there is that. So how do they plan these things? Well, they hold conferences. The World Economic Forum has a yearly conference at Davos, but they also have more other meetings behind closed doors. Um, the Bilderberg group, they have meetings behind closed doors. The Club of Rome, very secretive about what they do. The Trilateral Commission, again, very much secretive, holding meetings behind closed doors. No itinerary, no records of what was spoken about. And then the Council for Foreign Relations, which is basically the glue that holds them all together. And then the World Economic Forum, where they pitch all this stuff to our politicians, to our massive corporation CEOs, and they talk about things like global economic governance and social engineering and stuff like that as well. So how do they do this? How do they get together and plan this? Well, they do it in way of simulations. They run simulations, and they look at different possibilities of different outcomes, and they basically play out every different situation, every different scenario to come to the conclusion of the one that best suits their narrative or their end goal, where they want to reach. And obviously, they counter you guys, they factor you guys into this as well. They expect you to kick off, they expect you to not comply, they expect you to push back on restrictions because let's be honest, who really wants to be tied down any more than we already fucking are? It's just disgraceful. So They always seem ready for the next big crisis, don't they? They always seem like they got a good plan. I mean, look at 2020 when it all kicked off, and then within 6 months they had the solution, Maxine. She came along, and we've seen the fallout from that, and it's not been pretty. Just one example for you is that more athletes have dropped dead during the field of play in whatever sport they partake in since 2020 than died in total in the combined 100 years before that. So between 1920 and 2020, less athletes died whilst partaking in their sport than have in the 5 years since. That doesn't ring alarm bells by itself. Then the 400% increase in turbo cancers. I mean, I never heard of turbo cancer in 2019. That's a new thing. So we've got a right to ask questions. There's plenty of evidence out there to support our way of thinking being correct. And the justification for your suspicions is absolutely on point. It's there. But let's get into one of these events that they run a simulation, because obviously they always seem ready for a big crisis, and that's because they rehearse it like it's a fucking Broadway show. So let's talk about Event 201, the catastrophic contagion simulation. So back in November, I believe it was, or it might have been October actually, October 2019, Bill Gates and his wonderful cronies from the Trilateral Commission, representatives from the World Economic Forum, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, and any other nasty group you can think of, probably each one of them being Illuminati members and all the rest of it. They're already very clandestine and secretive about what they do. But the Event 201 simulation was a simulation that they ran on what would happen if a deadly virus got leaked in the world somehow, or was, I don't know, developed out of thin air from crazy bat eating Chinese people, whatever you want to call it. Um, they ran the simulation, and then a month later, people in China started dropping with COVID. Coincidence? Again, you're probably a clown if you believe that. So these are elite dress rehearsals run by John Hopkins University, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum types, all cooking up fake pandemics and bioterror scares to test their control book. So, picture them smirking in their plush conference rooms, plotting how to make us panic, so we'll all cheer for tracking apps and digital IDs, clap for the nurses on a Thursday night, while they're doing dance videos on TikTok and not actually worrying about hospital overcrowding, wasting £20 million on a hospital that never got used, and all that sort of shenanigans. I mean, we saw it all. We saw it all, and if we didn't see it then, we're still seeing it now. So it's no mystery that there's a lot of distrust now in, the institutions that we used to rely on. I, for one, wouldn't go see a doctor unless I was dying. I don't trust hospitals. I don't trust needles anymore. Maxine can go fuck herself, as far as I'm concerned. I don't trust government, and I certainly, after Operation Lockstep and seeing it actually play out in real time, all of the media organisations all saying word for word for word the same things. Build back better. My God, we heard that from everybody. You know, keep your family safe. Praise the NHS. All of it. We heard it all, and it was all the same. I call them trigger words or trigger sentences. That when they say them and you hear it from two or three different sources, your ears start to perk up. You're like, why am I hearing word for word the exactly same shit from different people? So anyway, that was the first. Should we call it a simulation? We'll call it a simulation. The first simulation that I really cottoned on to that they've been running. Now, they probably have done before that, but I mean, it's not really going to be relevant to go back 50, 60 years and see what other things they've been up to. So I figured we'll go from then, from 201, Event 201. They ran a catastrophic contagion event, a CladX event, which again was another one about viruses and contagions and biohazards. They've also run one called Atlantic Storm. Um, and it always seems like these scenarios, these simulations, they all seem to incorporate the West, but not very much of the rest of the world, which is an interesting link there. Because when you know these people are crazy and they're trying to destroy Western values, you'll understand it a little bit clearer. Western values stand in their way. You know, freedom, democracy, the right to speak, freedom of speech and expression. These are all Western values. You know, if you go to China and speak out of turn against your government, you can't get your bread out of the shop. You can't get your milk. You won't be able to get on the bus. You might not even be able to leave your apartment. You know, if you've got one of these Swish card scanners to get in and out the front door. So we don't want that. We will always push back against it. So their idea is, okay, well, the people in the West are not going to want this. So we've got to destroy the West. We've got to turn it into something that no people any longer recognize. And that's what we're seeing with mass migration, for one example. It's what we're seeing with the lack of trust in institutions now. It's another example. It's what we're seeing with two-tier policing and two-tier justice. Something that I thought about the other day, actually, right, as well. Why does justice, called the judiciary, judiciary, Judea, Judaism? Is there something in that? I mean, that's where my mind went. Anyway, moving on swiftly. So they've run these simulations before, and obviously to have run one a month before the first case of COVID worldwide took place, for me, that's just a giant fucking red flag. I mean, that's not just a giant red flag. That's Bill Gates running around waving the fucking red flag, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, we've got to learn to pick up on these things. We've got to all be educated. We've got to understand what they're trying to achieve, and how they might go about that, which is the whole reason I'm doing this episode today, just to try and open your mind a little bit more and help you guys to understand what we're up against. We're up against an organized, well communicated, absolutely filthy rich with limitless influence in government, banking, corporations. If you need to buy anything from the supermarket, someone at these Trilateral Commission and John Hopkins University simulations is probably there, that runs a company that owns everything you'll want to buy. So they've got big coverage, you know, and a lot of power. So we're up against a behemoth of a very intricately put together machine of hedonism, basically, for lack of a better term. So the next one is they're running something called um, Exercise Pegasus. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys again really quickly. And when that comes up, I just want to show you. I did a little search here. Exercise Pegasus is going to be run between September and November 2025. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the World Health Organization's pandemic and preparedness plan, but just the simple fact that the Tier 1 Exercise Pegasus, on pandemic preparedness and response, makes me think that old Tedros is behind this one as well. And of course, we know that Keir Starmer is singing from that hymn sheet like the cover boy canary. So it's on gov.uk. You can check this out for yourself. It's the UK Health Service Agency's Advisory Board Major Incident Learnings. And it's a paper at the moment, but it does go into Exercise Pegasus. Validation through exercising as a core part of the UK HSA's approach to embedding learning. UK HSA is responsible for co-developing, delivering, and evaluating Exercise Pegasus with DHSC and other government departments. As a major Tier 1 exercise, Pegasus presents an important opportunity to validate and assure learning from the previous incidents and the COVID pandemic. The UK HSA will be a major participant, and the exercise provides an opportunity to validate our plans, which have incorporated lessons learned from previous incidents and exercises. So, as I did mention to you already, the several simulations that they've already run, They've refined what they got wrong during the first pandemic. They've been working on it, and they've been trying to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that the mistakes they made, like making Operation Lockstep a little bit too obvious and easy for people that are awake and aware of these things to pick up on. And of course, not having enough power and control over censorship of social media to be able to stop people talking about it, because these stories got out and they raised eyebrows. Now, the people that they raised the eyebrows of became people like me, truth seekers, people that want to share the news with everybody and try and educate people to protect yourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's the only reason I do this. Contrary to popular belief on TikTok, if you watch the bearded moron that goes around making videos about people he doesn't like, I do this to try and help you guys at the end of the day. And like I said before, if I want to make money, I'll make money from something I've created. And I have created something, but we'll get into that at the end of the episode. So it's the same dirty tactic that they always use, and it's in overdrive. Scare us with fake crises and then roll out chains like BritCard, CBDCs, 15-minute cities, or C40 as they're called on the World Economic Forum website. And you'll never guess who's been heading up that project worldwide. Only the one and only wonderful Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. He's been travelling around the world and convincing other world leaders, mostly liberal left-wing psychopathic leaders, of course, that this is a good idea for them to do to their people too, because Britain are probably going to lead the way with it, as we've already attempted to do in Oxford since 2020, I want to say 2021, 2022, they started implementing a 15-minute style city in Oxford. Basically, if you lived in one section of Oxford, imagine Oxford cut up into like a pizza. You got 16 slices or 8 slices. Let's make it 8 slices. And you live in slice number 5, the one that's in line with 5 o'clock. And you want to get to slice 6. You can't just drive into slice 6. You can't just drive into your little neighbourhood next door. You'd have to go all the way to the middle or all the way to the outer edge and go round. So how is that better for the fucking environment if you're using 4 times as much fuel just to get a mile down the road? Because they've put an invisible barrier, an invisible border between you and the neighbourhood next door. What if your kids are best mates with the kids growing? They're going to be sharing the same schools and stuff. None of it makes any sense to the real man, to the layman. It makes perfect sense to them because it's another form of control. And at the end of the day, that's their end game. More control, less freedom for us. Control for them, no freedom for us. And eventually, they'll pull that thread until the whole jumper unravels and all you're left with is a little dicky bow tie around your neck. And then they'll slap a chain on that and tie it to the wall. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want things like Event 201, Catastrophic Contagion event, CladX event, or even the new Pegasus one being run in the UK to be able to give them the power for more control. So we want to try and fight against that. Well, how do we? Again, I've mentioned it before. Speak up about it. If you learn something new, speak about it. Make a video about it. If you're not good on camera or you don't like your own voice, type it in a message on your screen and put it on TikTok, or use one of these. You can use like apps for free where you can create a picture. Just create a picture, put some text on it, say blah, blah, blah. Exercise Pegasus is the same as Event 201. Expect something horrible to follow. Leave a little message and just post it on your social media. You don't have to have 100 people like it or share it. 1 or 2 might be enough, because then they might go and share it and they might have 10 times the followers you do, and then another 10 people share it. And then they share it out and they might have 10 times the followers he does. And then it's 100 and so on and so on and so on. So the idea is we are not trying to empty the lake with one bucket. What we're doing is we're throwing a pebble in the lake and letting the ripples spread to all corners of it. Okay? The ripples spreading to all corners of it is the signal, the message getting out there. Letting people know what you know. If you find something and you share it, you might have only found part of it. And someone who's a little bit more tuned up and brushed in on the whole truth-seeking thing grabs that breadcrumb and follows it down the rabbit hole until they get to the very bottom of it. And they get to, well, I call them rabbi holes for a reason. But anyway, we won't go into that today. We'll move forwards. So I don't want to bring you all guys down. I mean, it's the first proper episode of the podcast, but at the same time, I do have to share this information with you because if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing my job as a truth seeker in exposing this kind of madness that's running the world. I mean, right now in our country, the circus is being run by the clowns. The ringmaster has fucked off well and truly, probably since David Cameron, the old pig fucker, has basically walked away from the table after putting Brexit on it and not liking that people wanted to eat it. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to serve something for lunch and people want to eat it, don't get sulky about it and walk away at the end of it. You're not going to win come dine with me like that, are you? So, here's the globalist endgame. They want us all locked in. They want digital ID, just like the UK's BritCard. So, I'm going to share my screen with you again, and I'm going to jump into, let's open up a new page here, and let's just have a look at BritCard. What is BritCard? Oh, it's a Labour incentive for a start. And there's a whole PDF on it. Now, if you like reading, maybe don't read the Harry Potter series for a fifth time. Maybe jump in here and download yourself a PDF to have a little read through. At the end of the day, BritCard is a thing. It is real. They are working on it. And as you can see, people like this gentleman here, not too
We're
happy.
to call it the BritCard. Labour think tank Labour Together has published a paper calling for a digital ID system, and I quote, a mandatory national digital identity that would be issued free of charge to all those with the right to live or work in the UK, whether they are British-born nationals or legal migrants. The BritCard would be a verifiable digital credential downloaded onto a user's smartphone, which could be instantly checked by employers or landlords using a free verifier app.
Okay, so I'm not going to let him ramble on. If you want to read, if you want to watch that video, of course you can at any point. You know, it is very easily found. Just type in BritCard in Google and it came up. It was like the fifth response. So I won't go into that. Obviously, I'm the one making videos here today, and I don't want to get a copyright strike on my first one. But GB News do cover a lot more than BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky News, etc., etc., etc. So if you want real news, well, I mean, they don't talk about everything. Even their boss has got his fingers in some pies, obviously. But they will tell you a lot more than any of the other news channels. Now, you might think, oh, I'm not even right wing. That's a right wing channel. Maybe it is, yeah. They do, a lot of the hosts do hold right wing views, and you might not agree with that, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, that's what freedom of speech and freedom of expression are about, is the right to hold your opinion, whether somebody else likes it or not. And we can't all be putting an arm around somebody who cries about somebody else's opinion. You know, the nanny nation needs to put a stop to it. We do. We need to take back control of sanity. And for the sake of sanity, if you can spend half an hour watching a GB News article about something in particular, like that, because no other news company is covering it, you may not agree with all the opinions of the people that are presenting it to you, but you'll get the information you need to be able to make your own mind up about whether you agree with the whole overall plan or not, you know? So we know their end game is digital ID. Why do they need digital ID? Well, they need digital ID because they need to be able to bring in a CBDC. Do you know what a CBDC is? Well, if you don't, let's find out. So I'm going to jump back into the screen share with you guys, and we're going to pop open another window, and let's go CBDC, and I'll type in the standard UK, and it should be Bank of England, first result on there. Santander, probably because they're quite one of the popular banks in the UK, and then gov.uk. Now, why would they have this information on their website if it wasn't actually true? So, obviously, I'm not going to go into the Bank of England because you'll get all of the praise, and none of the real gritty information. But just to show you, under the Conservative government, this was posted, and Labour are pushing full steam ahead with plans for it. They're talking about creating a central bank digital currency. Now, what is a central bank? Well, as you saw in the search results here, the Bank of England is the central bank for the UK. Okay, so what is a CBDC? Accept only recommended cookies because I don't trust you fuckers. What is a CBDC? Well, it stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. I've just explained that. It's a digital money. A country's central bank can issue alongside cash. Notice that they've sugarcoated it because they've said alongside cash. That's not what they're planning. They're planning on getting rid of cash because they don't want anybody going around and earning money they don't know about. They want to know every little aspect of your life, and they want to know every penny you spend and what you spend it on and where you spend it and when you spend it and how you spend it, how much of it you spend. Because if they don't, they can't bring in more green agenda and tie in social credit systems, carbon credit systems, where they say, sorry, you've had too much meat last week, you can't buy any steak this week. But at the end of the day, the overall thing for CBDC is it's a digital currency. What do you need for a digital currency? First, you need a digital identity. Okay, so I know it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but they pitch it as the cure for the madness that they've created. And I'll give you an example of that. Knife crime. You know, there's knife crime all over the country right now. There's a stabbing every 30 seconds in London. And a lot of them are being carried out by our new boat visitors. Now, in order to be able to ascertain who's committing these crimes, it'd be a lot easier if everybody had a digital ID, because if they had the camera infrastructure to be able to scan any electrical devices within range, then even if they can't get a clear picture of the person committing the crime, they can also scan your phone, your electronic device, your electronic or digital ID, and they'll know who you are. And if you don't think they've got this kind of technology, well, they have. I can assure you they have. I've seen it. I've seen cameras that are set up in London now as we speak. We think they're just facial recognition. They're a far sight more than that. They can determine exactly who you are, exactly where you've been all day, what you've spent money on, everything, all tied to your bank already. You know, just having these little Visa debit cards. It's a trail. You leave a trail of breadcrumbs everywhere you walk. You're like a pigeon's wet dream, you know? So it's the surveillance jackpot for these guys, tracking every single step you make from your pub pint right to your paycheck. Now, the World Economic Forum types, they're absolutely high-fiving over this. It's a wet dream for them. They want your life basically reduced to a barcode and an implant. And believe me, I've heard them talking about it. And much worse. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Now, the digital pound and their CBD sidekick are basically two of the ultimate tools for top-down control. You know, once they've got them in place, you know, you basically, you've bent the knee. That's it. It's over. Freedom's gone, you know. And I hate to be the bearer of doom and bad news, but that's the way we're headed very quickly. They've already got the infrastructure in place for a digital pound. Most of the banks in the UK are already ISO 2022 compliant, which means that they're able to move all of their currency and assets onto the blockchain, which is like where Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is on the blockchain. XRP, XLM, Stellar, Dogecoin, all of the meme coins, they're all on the blockchain. It's the future of money, okay? But without the anonymity that you get from like Bitcoin, for example, using a cold wallet and not storing it on an online storage facility or an exchange. If you've got a cold wallet and you've got Bitcoin, then you can spend what you want on what you want when you want, and they can't track you, you know. So they want to flip that on its head, as they do with everything, inverted, just like they do with their kids as well, sick people. And they want to flip it on its head, and they want to turn it into the total tool of control. So they've let the borders collapse. They've let crime sprees go wild. You know, they're not chasing anyone for shoplifting anymore. Knife crime's out off the charts. out of control. And then they'll come in with this fix like a dodgy salesman. They'll be like, guess what? We've got BritCard now. If you don't have a BritCard, you can't even go in the shop. So you can't steal if you haven't got your BritCard. You have to scan it at the door, and then you won't get away with walking out with anything because we'll have you on camera. And they'll sell it like that, and people, dumb people, liberal lefties, crazy people, and I'm not talking. I mean, if you're on the fence, if you're central politically, or if you're left politically, good for you. I don't hate you. I don't hate your opinions. You're entitled to them. I'm all for free speech, but you are a human being, and I care about all human beings. And at the end of the day, you deserve the warning as much as anybody else that these people that are in control of us, they're not looking for our best interests. If they were, they would have done something about Gaza getting leveled. And that's just one example that I can give from you guys. I mean, I'm not that up to date on what you guys seem to care about so much. Um, but if they really cared about your feelings, they wouldn't have stood back and shut their mouths when the Supreme Court came in and said there's only two genders, and things like that. So there's arguments on the right, there's arguments on the left, and at the end of the day, they're all valid arguments. People care about them, obviously, respectively, and at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to express your opinion in whatever way you see fit, and unless you're directly instigating violence in specific terms, and you do have to, I mean, this is too much of a grey area at the moment. That's why people like Lucy Connolly are in jail for a tweet she deleted 4 hours later. She didn't incite violence that day because she didn't speak to anybody directly that she knew. She was tweeting her overall generalized frustrations, and she got collared and blamed for a bunch of dappy morons that set fire to a part of a migrant hotel later that day. And they basically twisted and perverted the course of justice and banged her up for 31 months for saying something that they could pin to a crime that was hundreds of miles away, you know, and that's the way we're going. I mean, one day it's the right, the people on the right, the people that are being labelled far right thugs that are being banged in jail, and then the next day it's your Palestine action, as you've seen already. They're not coming after just the right; they're coming after everybody. So you need to have your guard up. So it's the Dirty Tactics final act. Chaos stirred up. They solved the problem by chaining up your freedom. So don't buy their snake oil. This idea is not for you. It's for them. It's for their control of you. You know, you need to understand the BritCard, the CBDC. There's nothing good that comes after that. Nothing good. You can expect food shortages. You can expect to be locked out of things. You can expect your money to disappear. What are you going to do about it? Complain about the government or just switch the rest of it off? Fuck you. We've got control over everything in your life now. We're going to turn your TV off as well. Fuck it. It's the middle of December. Turn the gas off. Turn your smart meter off so you can't put your heating on. You might laugh at me. You might laugh at me. But we didn't think 5 years ago that they were going to start pumping lethal drugs and concoctions and trying out, NG163 on our family members and basically putting them to death. But as we're starting to find out in the delayed COVID inquiry, that things like that might well have taken place after all, and it might not have been a conspiracy theory. We might not have all been crazy after all. Anyway, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just ahead of the curve. I'm 6 months in front of the mainstream media. Call it what you want. Now, I don't want to bring just doom and gloom tonight. It is my first episode back, and I have been talking quite a bit because I'm getting a dry, tickly throat again. I've had to pause a couple of times just so I can have a coughing fit. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. Let's hit pause on the doom and gloom for a sec because it's not all apocalyptic. Across the globe, people with their heads screwed on are fighting back against this and the globalist clowns. Picture this, in Holland, courtrooms are buzzing right now. They've got big names being dragged in. They're auditioning for, these people, they're almost like they're auditioning for a villain in a Bond movie or something. Bill Gates has got international criminal court warrants out for his arrest. So does Anthony Fauci. the two bigwigs behind the COVID pandemic, or should I say behind the response to the COVID pandemic. The response that was already pre-prepared, the solution that was already pre-prepared, because of the problem that was already planned to be caused. So again, there's the PRS, problem reaction solution, or the dirty trick, as I call it. So the International Criminal Court's getting an earful with cases calling out the World Economic Forum's favourite pen pushers. Klaus Schwab's in trouble. Anthony Fauci's in trouble. Bill Gates is in trouble. And it's not just the Dutch either. Japan's government's throwing punches too, suing vaccine giants like they're squaring up in a legal cage match. From Europe to Asia, lawsuits are piling up faster than Klaus Schwab's collection of futuristic capes. And believe me, he's got a good one. You'd think that he wanted to be the ultimate Bond villain. I tell you, they've even got their own religion in the pipeline. And guess who's the god of that religion? Yeah, exactly. So, chin up. These elitists might think they're untouchable, but the world is waking up and justice is definitely creeping closer. Certain people that were silenced throughout the pandemic have now got a little bit more freedom to speak, thanks to people like Elon Musk buying X and creating a community where people are allowed to say what they want, within reason, of course, and there's not really any comeuppance from that. Apart from maybe the old bill kicking your door through at 5 o'clock in the morning because you tweeted something they don't like, or someone above them doesn't like, and they've sent them round after you. So let's get you lot involved. Time to stir the pot. Drop yourself in the comments and let me know what's the sketchiest globalist move that you've seen so far or spotted recently. If you've seen anything that's raised an eyebrow or made you think, what is that? And if you're watching live, obviously jump in the live chat. I'll probably be in there anyway, so if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm quite happy to help. So, migration chaos, sky high energy bills, or maybe Starmer's latest oops. We just taxed your granny's pension. And here's a spicy one. If you could send one globalist packing to a desert island far, far away from anywhere, like Diego Garcia, for example, who would it be? Any globalist. It could be Keir Starmer, it could be Klaus Schwab, it could be Bill Gates, it could be the ex-CEO of Nestle, the one, that had the black eye when he was promoted to the World Economic Forum leadership. Yeah, the black eye. The Black Eye Club, you guys know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, maybe research on a quiet day. Don't use Google, use Yandex. Yes, it's Russian, and some of the answers you get will be in Russian, but they've also got this really handy thing called a translate feature. You can just translate it all back to English. So, Yandex won't give you the same results Google will either. It'll give you something you're asking for, but if before it gives you 200 million suggestions on what it wants to distract you with first. Now, Klaus Schwab with his sci-fi wardrobe, or maybe Bill Gates is trying to debug the world like it's Windows XP. Let me know which globalist you would stick on a desert island by himself with no chance of recovery. Also, guys, we're halfway through, well, we're more than halfway through the episode, so don't forget to smash a like on the video. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I love the support, and I will be bringing you plenty more content like this in the future. If you have subscribed, make sure you've hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of any future updates or posts. And I have created a new community area where you guys can come in at any time through the week, make suggestions, ask questions, and I can even discuss it in an episode if you want me to. And if you're interested in coming on and chatting to me and the rest of the viewers, maybe you've got a good story to share. Maybe you found something that the rest of us haven't. Or maybe you just want to vent and get your frustration out because you feel like you should have a voice. I'll give you a platform to do that. We may only have 250 subscribers now, but the goal is to hit 1,000 within 6 months. So help me on the way with that as well, guys. People are not going to find this show if we're not telling them about it. So bring them on over. If you've got a friend online that you speak to a lot, social media, doesn't really watch podcasts, maybe they've not been for them. Maybe they're fed up of watching only Americans talk about the truth, and they want to see an Englishman doing it. And they don't want someone that's got, I don't know, Tommy Robinson on the podcast every 5 minutes or something like that. then fine, come on over. We're all about the truth here. Not that I won't get Tommy Robinson on the podcast if he wants to, but I very much doubt it. I'm too tiny for that. So, but yeah, obviously, genuine people like myself, yourself, you're always welcome. And I will definitely give you a platform to air your concerns. Now, Starmer's crew, they can't really seem to agree if they're saving the planet or just their own asses. So, what do you think? Are they trying to save their own asses? I don't know. And what's the dumbest thing that you think Labour have done since they've been in power? There's been a few. Maybe it was David Lammy spending £600,000 worth of taxpayer money on food in 6 months. Must be well over 1 million by now. After all, it has been a whole year near enough now since they got in. Jesus Christ. And you know what? I saw a post yesterday saying Sadiq Khan might be the next Prime Minister. I called that over a year ago. I called that. And then over the last year, I've heard people catching on to it slowly. And it's been kind of, it gives me like a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when people start catching on to what I've said and they start telling other people and sharing it and the word spreads around. I'm not happy about the fact that he might be Prime Minister, of course. He'll fucking destroy this country quicker than he destroyed London, and it only took him 5 years for that. So, anyway, let's get back into it. Let's get some more doom and gloom out of the way, shall we? Before we can come up with a solution ourselves for the problem that they've created and the reaction that they're getting. So, censorship and corporate control. Yeah, we know all about that, especially if, like me, you've had a TikTok account or a Facebook account or an Instagram account that's been leveled just because you spoke the truth or shared something that you wanted other people to know about. Do you know, it's funny, I've done this, it's a 20 episode so far, I think I've done of it on TikTok called Liberal Logic. I've done 20 different 15-second videos about, the way things are going on the extreme left. I'm going to call it the extreme left because I know that not everyone that's on the left politically is as crazy as these people. But yeah, liberal logic from the extreme left, and the 20 videos that are up already, they've all done at least 300 views. I expect around that. It's about 10% of the followers I've got on this account at the moment. But more importantly, one video was censored out of the 20, and it was the one talking about the big digital corporations censoring us. Can you fucking believe the irony in that? So, the globalists have their crisis and they have the digital traps planned. So, let's talk about how they gag us to keep it rolling. Censorship's their favourite toy at the moment. Social media platforms will throttle your posts faster than you can say free speech, and if you dare to question their narrative, you might even get a visit from the Stasi. So, you ever notice your tweets vanish if you mention, you know who? Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, certain people, prominent figures. That's the World Economic Forum's pals working overtime, making sure that dissent gets the mute button. And then there's ESG, economic social governance, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Fancy acronyms for the corporate puppet strings that they're using. And BlackRock is out there telling companies to push globalist agendas or kiss their investments goodbye. And on top of it, they're telling people to force behaviors within their corporations, which is quite alarming because almost 80% of the working world works for a company or corporation that is in some way controlled or influenced by BlackRock. I mean, they're the biggest investment and finance capital company in the world. They own about 80% of the companies in the world, along with State Street and Vanguard, which are a little bit more secretive. But Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, who started BlackRock back in the 80s with the AI Aladdin that helped him notice patterns in the stock market to buy things for cheap that could be revived and then make maximum profit out of, has turned them into a global behemoth of a company. They're now the most influential company in the world. And like I say, they've got the fingers in pretty much every pie on a supermarket shelf and beyond. So it's the dirty tactic again. create division, silence the truth, make us play nice with their control schemes. And we don't want that. We don't want to play nice. We want to put our foot down firmly and say, no, no more control. You've already overreached. You know, we don't want these people telling us how to live our lives. Most of us probably rather not work, not send our kids to school, spend all day at home, look after a few chickens and some cows and grow your own vegetables and just live off the grid. That's my dream. What about you? Let me know in the comments. Would you like to live off the grid? Would you like to form a community with your fellow like-minded friends? I know that there is one friend of mine on TikTok that's really thinking about it, you know, and if you could put a few pennies together to help buy a patch of land, maybe you could be part of something like that. Whatever you do not let these corporate douchebags, con artists, zip your lips and silence you, because the fight for freedom needs your voice. So, let's fight back. We've laid bare the globalist game, the creator crisis, watch the reaction, or even, in some cases, escalate the reaction. You know, like for example, Labour coming in and breaking records for the boat crossings while standing there going, I'm going to smash the gangs. And Patrick Christie's done more to smash the gangs than Keir Starmer's entire government has in a year. And what did he do? He sent all the information off to the National Crime Council, and they did fuck all. The people are still operational. They're still running. If you don't know who Patrick Christie's is, he is a reporter for GB News. And he's one of my favourite people in the world, if I'm honest, because the guy literally does not talk any shit, does not take any shit, and he gets things done. Ever since he went over to Calais and exposed these, you know, boat crossings and the gangs organising it and stuff like that, all of a sudden, the BBC felt the need to go over there and film their pre-planned propaganda of French police cutting the boats open as they were trying to leave. You know, ironically, a day or two before Emmanuel Macron's state visit to the UK. We all know it was a ruse. It was definitely propaganda. It came from the BBC. You can pretty much bet your bottom dollar if it comes from the BBC, it's propaganda. State-controlled propaganda. State-funded propaganda. Defund the BBC. Absolutely. So, here's the deal. We're not their puppets, you know. They're puppets already themselves. And fine, let them be puppets. But we don't want to be part of this game. So it's time to fight back, and it starts with you. You. You need to use your voice. We all do. I'm out there every day on social media. I'm on X. I'm on TikTok. I'd go on Instagram and Facebook, but they're so shit, to be honest with you. I can't even tell my name on there without getting fucking censored and banned. But you know, I mean, someone else has already done that job for me, so yes, I am Jordan Pink, Mr. Pink himself in the house. And I'm out here working my bollocks off every day to try and spread the truth, despite what it might mean for me. You know, if that means I've got to spend time in jail, so be it. I'm ready to swallow that pill. But until I do have to, I'm going to dish out as many red pills as I can. So what do you need to do? Well, speaking out is a good start. But at the very least, reject digital ID. Reject the BritCard. Don't go along with it. If you've got the NHS Track and Trace app or any NHS app on your phone, fucking delete that thing. Do you really think it's just about giving you handy, in your hand information about health? No. It's about a lot more than that, trust me. And it is literally the foundations for electronic digital ID. They're going to build the BritCard off of the back of the same system, and they're going to tie it into, you know, universal credit, personal independence payment, and all the rest of it. So just reject it. There are still people these days on benefits that get paid with a paper gyro. Yeah. Now, if you're younger than 20, you've probably never heard of one of them. What it is universal credit payment that goes in your bank. Used to get sent out in the post on a piece of paper, and you could take it in the post office, and they would give you the amount of money that was written on it. Kind of like a check, cashing a check in, you know. There are still people that get paid by gyro, believe it or not, because they just refuse to play the game. They don't even want a fucking bank card, you know. And kudos to them people. because they'll be the last ones to sign up for digital ID. Spread the word like wildfire. Question every single crisis, everything that goes wrong, everything from mass stabbings and terror related attacks to an increase in boats coming over. Is it just about the weather, or have they planned this all along? The lack of information coming from places that are supposed to be verifiable and trusted sources. you know, um, there is such a thing called tacit agreement. If you don't know what that is, it is you giving consent by not saying no. So if you don't say no to BritCard, then as far as they're concerned, you've said yes. And the same for CBDCs. If you don't say no, if you don't like, I get paid, okay, electronically. Of course I do. Almost everybody does these days. It's very rare that you work in a job where you'll get a month's pay in cash or even a week's pay in cash nowadays. Some people still do. Happy days. Stick that. Stick to that. Stick it. Just make it your core belief. Cash is king. But for those that don't and get paid electronically, I pay my rent and I pay my mobile and broadband package because I pay for phone for myself, my wife, my 20-year-old son. He pays me the money back, of course, but I pay the bill in one hit. The broadband, the TV package that we all get. My wife watches TV. Don't blame me. Yes, she watches the BBC, but thankfully only for fucking EastEnders, which has got enough indoctrination in it of itself. But we do watch a bit of TV. I quite like sitting down with the wife watching movies, not because I like watching the movies, but because I like spending time with my wife. And if I don't do something like that that she can relate to me on the same level with, we'd never do anything together, honestly. I mean, last night, for example, went out for a drink for the first time in 5 years. Because 5 years ago, we last went out to celebrate our anniversary. Yeah, it's our anniversary tomorrow. Yeah, stick your happy anniversaries in the comments. But yeah, like I say, we go out probably once every 5 years, and that's not an exaggeration. That is the gritty truth. I spend most of my working week doing that, working 50, 60 hours to pay the bills. But we all have our own separate struggles. Some of you guys do the same as me, but with a disability, and I've got the utmost amount of respect for anyone that does. Fights their own demons to get out of bed every day, go and do a job. Maybe they hate the job. Maybe they're disabled too. Maybe they hate the fucking pay they're getting. You go out for shit pay, shit job, and you're disabled, and you still manage to get out of bed every morning and check in. Fair play to you. I've just got to say, I've got so much respect for everybody that still does it, knowing what we're facing, knowing what's going on, and knowing that the world are walking towards it like sheep. Share your stories with your neighbours. Wake your neighbours up. Laugh in the face of the Davos daydream. At the end of the day, I mean, people might not even know who Klaus Schwab is. So say, well, there's this bald bloke in Switzerland that basically has the ear of all of the world leaders, including Keir Starmer, that wants us to have brain implants so he knows what we're thinking, eat bugs and own nothing and still be happy. If that ain't enough to get up somebody's back, I don't know what is. Start small, maybe. Tell him, don't give up cash. If you give up cash, you won't be able to give a tip to the milkman or the paper boy anymore. How are you going to do that? There's no cash anymore. You know, just try and connect with them on a level that you know that you're going to be able to connect with them on. Do you know what I mean? I mean that's probably a winner, to be fair. If people still get milk delivered by the milkman, I do. It's not in glass bottles anymore, but it comes every Monday, 8 pints of milk and 12 eggs. Perfect, you know. And then when winter comes around and he's coming out in the freezing cold, stupid hours in the morning, we'll leave a little box out there for him with his name on it, Mark. There's a tip, 20 quid, 30 quid, whatever. Whatever we can afford at the time. And we wouldn't be able to do that if they get rid of cash. Mark would just have to suck up the payment that we give him every month, and that's the end of it. Do you know what I mean? So it's all about the control, and we've got to push back against it and fight it. People are rising from Dutch courtrooms all the way to Japanese lawsuits. Keep your voice loud and your eyes open, and most importantly, keep your spirit unbreakable. Don't let their doom and gloom bring you down. There's no need for it. If you're happy within yourself, you're a lot less easy to control. Miserable people are surprisingly easy to control and manipulate. Yeah, so don't be that guy, that girl. Don't be miserable. This is our fight at the end of the day. This is our fight for freedom. It's an existential fight for freedom. We've not got much time left to push against everything they're trying to promote, everything they're trying to instill. Um, so we all need to get on this now, a collaborative effort between all of us. This is our fight for freedom. Let's make these globalist goons regret ever trying to put us in a cage. So that's all we're going to go into today. Um, I mean, let's round it up. We've ripped the mask off the globalists. I've shown you they're all intermittently tied together through the World Economic Forum. That just seems to be the cesspit they all meet up. Like, I don't know, a youth club for the naughty kids at the end of the day. So I'm done with the doom and gloom. Let's wrap this up with some funny grins and a few gut punches to the big. Let's put a big middle finger up to the strings and the puppet masters, shall we? Because these self-appointed overlords, they're looking at you, the World Economic Forum weirdos, thinking they can herd us like sheep into their problem reaction solutions scams, and we're not grazing quietly anymore, are we? No, we're going to be the wolves howling back at them. So let's talk about Keir Starmer and his Labour circus. It's like watching a soap opera where the cast is at war with itself. Keir's out there banging on about his dad. My dad was a tool maker. We know. He made the biggest tool in the Northern Hemisphere. It's like watching it's like watching an episode of EastEnders, watching Prime Minister Question Times at the moment. And who the fuck is even asking the questions? I mean, I only hear Rupert Lowe asking questions that we want heard. Maybe every now and then Robert Kendrick and a couple of other maybe sitting there quietly most of the time pop up with a real perler of a question. There are a few good people in that building, don't get me wrong. And the fact that so many of Labour are defecting on his own party makes me think there might be a few in Labour too. Even the Liberals can be good people. Yeah, we know. So Keir's on about his dad being a tool maker, and it's like, we get it, mate. He made a complete spanner, not solutions, though, didn't he? His government's tripping over its own net zero nonsense, taxing us into oblivion whilst preaching green vibes. Mad Ed Miliband talking about let's go 50% solar and 50% wind, and then let's block the sun because that'll bring the global temperature down. What a bunch of fucking idiots. Like I said earlier, the clowns are running the circus. And there's no circus, there's no ringmaster. No one's keeping them in check. It's a masterclass in globalist gobbledygook. Starmer's practically auditioning to be Klaus Schwab's errand boy, fetching his coffee in a reusable cup, of course. Green agenda, you know. But here's the kicker: these globalist goons, with their Bilderberg backroom meetings and deals and Gates-funded fever dreams, they're not as slick as they think. Because they're like dodgy mechanics trying to fix a car with a paperclip. It's all smoke and mirrors, and a whopping great big bill for us at the end of it. And their simulations, like Event 201 or the exercise Pegasus, they're just rehearsals for their control freak show. Their fantasies of locking us down. But we're not buying tickets to that show. And don't even get me started on BritCard again. Jesus, sounds like a loyalty card for a prison canteen. Not the future of freedom. More like you're free to do what we say. So anyway, enough about that. Let's pivot for a minute. I've launched Article 10 clothing store. I don't know if you watched the last live episode I did, the second part of the Fall of the Cabal series. It is on the page. You might have to hit the live stream tabs just to find it. I did create another playlist for it, so it was twice as easy to find, but it won't pop up like these videos do, straight in your face when you open the page on the channel. So, but what will is a link underneath the Article 10 TV name, and that is for the Article 10 clothing shop. Now, I created a line of clothing to try and vibe with the podcast. It's all about freedom. It is right wing, quite a lot of it, but you might like some of it. I don't know. Just take a look, see what you think. It's all about freedom and sticking it to the man, really. Sticking it to the control freaks that want to lock us in cages like chickens, like battery hens. So we've got some fresh designs dropping in the next few days. At the moment, I think there is about 50 or 60 items on the store that you can have a little look through. A lot of it's the same designs on jumpers and t-shirts. So there's jumpers, t-shirts, hoodies, same designs on two or three different items at a time. Take a look, click the link, have a little look. I had my first order the other day. It is one of you guys that watches, Magnashare from TikTok. I can't remember what your name is on YouTube, so you'll have to excuse me for that. But yeah, she's followed me for a while, and she's a good loyal follower, and she's ordered the first item. And who'd have thought it? Jordan Pink launches a clothing store, and the first item that gets bought is pink. Can't make this shit up. So we've got some fresh designs dropping. I'm thinking of making one based on this episode. So I was going to go with either a cartoon design of Klaus Schwab looking like a Bond villain, maybe even stroking the cat, kind of like a Dr. Evil type thing, or I was going to do another one that just says dirty tactic detector and then some kind of, I don't know, like, one of them EMF detectors or something like that, slapped across the chest. So the link is obviously in the description for the channel, and I'll put it in the description for this video as well. I'll also put a few links to a few websites. You can do your own research for BritCard, CBDCs, World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, and anything else I can find out there. I'll chuck it all in the links. And you guys can maybe go on a little journey of your own. See if you find something that I've not bumped into yet, and let me know. Jump in the community tab and leave a message. So it's open for you guys to message me as well, to make suggestions for content, maybe even suggestions for t-shirt designs, and much more as well. Let's build a community of truth seekers and anti-globalist warriors, because at the end of the day, we're going to need to do something. So I'll also put a poll up on the page as well in the community tab. So you'll have to be subscribing to the channel to access the community tab, of course. But I'll put a poll up on there as well to see which design is your favourite once I've done the designs. So that won't be tonight. It might be in the next day or two, though. So keep an eye out for that. And if you really like it, then I'll get it on the store as quickly as possible. If you like both of them and it's a 50-50 poll, I might just do both of them. If we get a good response on both of them, then I probably will. So yeah, the Schwab jab or the tactic blaster. Vote it, wear it, flaunt it. Let's make these globalists see that we're not going to play their game anymore. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. Laughing, fighting, and ready to take back our freedom, hopefully. Keep those comments coming in. Like and subscribe. And let's send these psychopaths running. Until next time, stay sharp, stay loud, and let's break those globalist chains together. Good night, guys, and much love.